Thanks for inviting me, man.
Yeah, so introduce yourself.
Name's Sean Bovell. I am 33 years old. I'm
This is not a Tinder date.
I
Where are you from, brother?
I was born overseas in London.
I didn't know that about you in London, huh?
Yeah. So
Okay.
my dad's family's from the UK and the Caribbean.
Mhm.
But I was born in London. My mom was American, grew up in Brooklyn, was in the military.
So you
My
live in
dad,
Brooklyn too?
nah, not yet. I visited there
Okay.
for a little bit, but I ended up leaving England around when I was like 2, 3 years old. That's why I don't have an accent.
Okay.
Yeah, and, like people were like, "Oh, you need to grow up in England." I'm like, I do. I have dual citizenship.
Okay.
So we moved all the way out to Ogden, Utah.
All right.
Grew up around a lot of Mormon people. We were one of the few Black people in the area we were at. But I didn't really pay attention to that when I was younger.
So do you identify as white and part of the Latter-day Saints?
No, but I do empathize. I do empathize with I do understand like the Mormon culture.
I know, it's fine.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. But we moved to Pocatello, Idaho after, which is like a pretty small town in like southern Idaho. It's like right when you're driving in.
Yeah.
My mom went there for college. She got her master's degree there, and I stayed there until I was like 11 or 12. Like,
So how was it,
7th grade.
you being this black kid prominently growing up in these white neighborhoods?
So what's crazy was like when I was younger, there was a kid in my class that invited everybody to his birthday party. He didn't give me an invite, but I assumed I was invited because, my friends were going. I went back home and I was like, Mom, like, I gotta like go to this kid's birthday party. So I did all these chores so I could get some money, and give him a gift. So I went and bought him a lava lamp. So he invited everybody in our grade. When it came time to the actual birthday party, like I went there with my friend, and there was only like 5 of us that showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was one of the few people, and I wasn't invited. So I showed up to this guy's house, and his parents were looking at me kind of weird. And then I was like, "Hey man, I got this lava lamp as a gift," and he was like, "Oh wow, thanks." I think we were watching a Harry Potter movie back then. It's like one of the first Harry Potter movies was coming out or something. So we were watching that. Then we went outside for a walk, and then he kind of came up to me. He's like, Sean, man, I used to be racist. And I was like, what's racist? And he was like, never mind, man. But I didn't understand like what being black meant until one day we kind of skipped through the civil rights act, like all the stuff that was happening in the civil rights movement. And when I was hanging out with some kids playing like during recess, they were like, "Oh, you can't play World War II." And I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Oh, there were no black people in World War II." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like a little kid, so I was like, "Whatever." I didn't get mad or anything. I was like, "Okay." So I just walked off, and I told my mom. And then my mom, who's getting her master's degree in education, man,
What the fuck?
Yeah, she went and lost her
mind.
And I didn't understand.
Did she march to the school? And
Yeah,
what is going on here?
Yeah, and she ended up teaching each class like civil rights stuff, like a whole week.
Bless your mom.
Yeah, and I got in a lot of trouble. I just never really like followed the rules, and it wasn't to be like I always asked why. I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Okay.
When 9/11 happened, I was in the classroom, and everybody in America talks about like where were you at when 9/11 happened? Well, I was in 5th grade, like when it happened, and we were just watching the whole thing unfold. And it was crazy. They started making us do the Pledge of Allegiance after that.
Wow.
And they were like, all right, like everybody has to do it. And I just would be standing outside. I'm like, I don't know why, like who we're pledging to. Like, I didn't understand. I wasn't really religious. My family didn't. We were Baptist, but I didn't really grow up with like religion really as like a focal point of my life. So I'm outside not doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is I get pulled in, and then my mom gets called in. It's like, your son's not doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And my mom, being educated, was like, well, he doesn't have to. And then there was this huge stink, and I just never understood why I was doing what I was doing. And I never understood why I was getting penalized for not doing that.
They're like, ship them back to London.
Right? Take us back to the UK. So I was like, oh, dude. And so
they're like, who's this British guy?
Right, get this fake American out of here. I felt so. I mean, in retrospect, it's kind of funny, but I ended up we ended up it was cool because like in Idaho, it was a very small town.
I love how the way you say Idaho.
Idaho.
Here, Idaho.
I mean, everybody says that you know. I got when I first came to California, that was like what everybody said too. Like you know, I was like, you guys aren't the only people. But I ended up going back to the UK for a little bit to go to school. So I did go to school in Sheffield. I went to visit London when I was older, like still I was like fourth, fifth grade at the time. Went to school there in Sheffield for about 6 months, came back, and then just living in Idaho is just such a small town. You could walk everywhere. I don't think I rode a single bus. You know, things are spread out, but there was a lot of things that you could just walk to. I rode a horse, made like, you know, igloos. You know, it was a very different life. And so yeah. So when I got to middle school,
riding horses, making igloos.
yeah, I mean, you know, it was man. It was,
you had a non-Californian upbringing.
So when I got to, my mom was like, "We're moving to Oakland," because she was like, "We got to get out of Idaho," and I didn't understand why. And I started piecing it together. I had an Indian friend whose dad was a professor at the university. He lived underneath us, and they put on his door, "Go back to the Middle East" when 9/11 happened. Man. And I was like, "Wait a minute! Like he's from India. It's not even the same place." But in Idaho, I want to say that they're racist, but like they have no exposure. I didn't see my first Asian person until when I was getting ready to leave. Yeah, so I just saw I had exposure to anime. My mom would cook like she had a culture, so we had like she made bulgogi and stuff, so like Korean food. Before I even met a Korean.
So your mom said, "My uncultured son is about to learn all the culture in the world,
right?
And we're moving our asses to Oakland,
right?" I mean, I'll kind of get into it later, but my older sister was like, she's like your complexion. My dad's also a little bit darker than you.
Okay.
So
what's your ethnicity? Like, are you full black? Or are you half?
I don't even really know what I mix with. There's white people in it. I don't know. I'm probably mostly black.
Yeah.
I would assume so. My skin. Yeah. But my sister looked very different than us.
Do you get like you're mixed or like?
No, I think
both of your parents are black, right?
Yeah, they're black, but my dad's mixed with something like Portuguese or something.
Okay.
I probably have some white or European in me.
Yeah.
I don't really claim anything. I'm just like just Sean. I don't.
Yeah, you're Sean. Okay.
Whatever. Yeah, no, but we ended up moving to California because my mom was like, "We got to get out of here." I lost all of the friends that I just made. It was a very, very like rough transition. And when I first got to Oakland, I ended up going to school in deep East Oakland, like Castlemont, where it's like really bad. So imagine like moving from like a very small town where everybody knows each other.
Like 99% white.
Right, 99% white, but like it's very communal still. Like I didn't realize there was a drug epidemic there at the time, but it was a culture shock. So I was in Oakland, you know, I had people like something, you know, I'm just like I'm not that. My name's Sean Bovell. And like, what's wrong with this guy? But I had lived like in different places like my whole life. And so I basically took time for me to adjust to Oakland. Like there was like shootings, like people were getting in fights at my school. Like
how long did it take you to acclimate to all this? And for your young mind to start processing like this is not Idaho anymore.
So the crazy thing was when I made my mom, I was like, "Mom, I'm going to move back to Idaho once I graduate high school." And she's like, "You could do what you want once you're 18. I'm like, "Okay." So after middle school, she made an agreement that like after like that first year of going to school there, that we could go back to visit Idaho. My dad was still there. They had divorced. So I was like, "Okay." So me and my brother went to Idaho, and I realized because my mom was military, like we had VA benefits. And so we would get like checks from the military just for being my mom's kid, you know, like
let's go.
So we'd go back to Idaho and like my mom would just give us $800 each. And we're like 14 years old, 13 years.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot, especially back then.
Yes.
And so we're like splurging and like, you know, like we bought so much crap one time that like our entire cart was filled with groceries. And we like got outside, had all my friends there.
Man, what a time. And you have a full cart of groceries. You go to the grocery store now, you barely fill the bottom layer. Like you can't even fill the bottom layer because all your budget's done.
Right. I was like, oh man. So and people were wondering how we were going to pay for it. So we pulled out our cash. We just front and everything. And then we get outside and we're like, wait, the house is like 5-6 miles away.
You're like, how are we gonna get
like, how are we gonna carry all this stuff back? Let's just take what we can. We just leave like all we left, probably like 60-70% of the groceries on the curb outside the store. And we just left.
You didn't return it?
No, we were kids. Like we were thinking.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't our money. So we didn't like, we didn't think. And so
you could tell your mom and then she whooped.
Oh, she didn't know anything. She never
wasted all that money.
We just blew cash. Like, and that was the thing. Like I had a lot of, when I was in Idaho, I realized that my friends were poor. And so then this was a huge culture shock for me because in Oakland, everybody who was, brown or minorities, like all these guys were like living in the hood, but you didn't see a single white person or very few white people that lived in the hood.
Yeah.
But in Idaho, all the white people that we grew up around with were poor and uneducated. And a lot of my friends didn't have money. I didn't know what food stamps were. So when my friend's mom was paying with food stamps, I was like, what are food stamps? And he got offended, but I genuinely didn't. I had no idea. I was, I'm a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw how little infrastructure and like stuff to do was in Idaho. Like my friends sometimes were going from, like his brother was working at Subway.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I came back a couple years later after being in California, and then he's now working at Subway and his brother's a manager. And I'm just like, there's like no.
And that's their American dream.
That's the thing, is like there's not a lot of opportunity for like people. And so
you're like, I'm not living in Idaho.
I never went back to visit. I was like, I'll see you guys on MySpace, man.
Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I still have them actually on Facebook.
Well, obviously you're here today.
Yeah.
I would not have never met you if you lived in Idaho.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you chose this path,
right?
That path, because who would have known where Sean would be today?
Yeah, and it took time to. I would say it took me my 7th, 8th grade year of middle school. I was very quiet.
Can you describe your first real deep East Oakland experience?
I think seeing somebody get shot in public in broad daylight, that was probably the craziest thing that I saw as a kid.
How old were you when you saw that?
14 or 15, man. It was like right when I got there. Because Castlemont, there's a school called EC Reams. It's like right next to the Castlemont.
Yeah.
And I would just sit in front.
So what did your mom say when you said, I just saw a kid get shot?
She talked about it, but it was just for her. What's she going to say? So what she did was she moved me to another middle school. Mm-hmm. Once we moved out of my grandma's spot, we moved to closer to like Lake Merritt. It was still East Oakland.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the hundreds, like where we were at. So I was going to school out there. We got exposure to a lot of gangs at a very young age. Funny enough, the local gang, if ever me and my brother were to not go to school, they would snitch on us and they would tell my mom like, "Yo, your kids aren't at school today."
Oh, so they were they knew you wasn't about that life.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, these are the good kids.
Yeah.
So let's keep them in school.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope, actually.
Yeah. There was a time I came back home.
They were doing their gang shit, but at the same time, they were looking out for you.
Yeah. Our landlord at the time was trying to, because we were getting ready to move out after a while. He was trying to break in with the handyman, and the gangs, they're selling drugs outside. So they see him like, "Hey, bro, you don't live there. What you doing?" And then they call my mom like, "Hey, he's breaking into your house." And then they called the cops on the gang guys, and they were, "Oh, he's selling drugs outside our property." But the landlord was trying to break in, so we wouldn't get our deposit back.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And I was just like, man, but it's crazy because it was a huge learning lesson because I was trying to process all this stuff that was going on, the trauma, seeing violence, and it was normalized, like the lack of education in Oakland is people. It's become part of the culture, and when I got into high school, it was the hyphy movement. And I remember I was like, hey man, it was probably the first time when I heard Tell Me When to Go, I was just this nerdy, quiet kid in my house by myself, just wanting to go and socialize. And when I heard the song, I was just hey, on the computer, downloading it. I had the Academics remix. I was going dumb. And I remember
Shout out E40.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was crazy because like I had when I got into Oakland High, like I tested into like a STEM program at Berkeley.
Okay.
And got into the program.
For those that don't know what STEM is, can you explain it?
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics.
There you go.
Tested into this program. It was a bunch of kids from all over the Bay Area. It was minority kids. It's called Smash. Got into it, passed through all the interviews. It was very hard for me because like I had no friends that I really knew that were into this stuff. And then the only group of friends that I had were from the hood that were super uneducated. So when I would I'd be at this program at Berkeley in the summer, staying in the dorm to take classes. And I'd bring my friends from the hood to come check it out. I was like, yo, come check this out. And they're like, they'd come by, they'd see me with all these kids, smart kids.
Yeah. Were they uncomfortable?
Yeah, it was super uncomfortable for them. They're like, you want to hang out with these losers, Sean? Or do you want to go out and get bitches? It was tough for me because I had dropped out of this program at UC Berkeley. And a lot of my friends, I was watching them go out and socialize and they're getting girls and stuff. And I was like this quiet kid going to these hood ass parties. And I would just be standing in the background and they're like, hey, go get her number, man. One of the girls saw me.
But you didn't realize at that time you belonged at that program at UC Berkeley.
Right, exactly.
That's where you should have been.
Right. And that will, I'll kind of get to that because it kind of comes full circle. I think now that I'm like working in the tech space now. So I ended up, dropping out, hanging out with them. And then slowly they started getting kicked out of high school. Like they're failing their classes. Like teachers were getting upset with me. Like teachers who wrote me recommendations to get into these programs were like, Sean, like you're acing all this stuff. Like I aced like the high school X exam like that. And he was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, you teacher, like, I was rebelling, skateboarder kid. And people would tell me like, hey bro, you're not about this life here. Like you should go over here. And eventually all of those guys got kicked out of high school. Like,
when did you really, really, really take ownership that this is not my life, this is my life?
I did a lot of stuff when I was younger instinctively.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like, that's why teachers are able to like, yo, this kid's different because it's like I would listen to what they're saying, even though I wouldn't do it, like, but I would be attuned into what they were saying, like locked in. And they're like, why are you doing this? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Because growing up, I had the same thing. I tested really high. Like in kindergarten, they tested me because they thought I was autistic.
Yeah.
But then my math scores came back and they were like, you're testing at like a senior level in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I was doing like huge math like big equations.
Yeah.
That most kids didn't know. Like I was part of the GATE program and all that. I was bored.
That's what they say. And that's what I was learning as I got older. So I didn't, because the environment was kind of hostile, I had to like suppress a lot of like what I wanted to talk about.
Shout out to the public school system, but there was a lot of like violence going on. Someone got stabbed in my high school. They died,
I got stabbed in high school by my own friend. And it was, when it happened, because I was educated from my mom, like the first thing that went through my mind was, don't get mad because everybody here is going to smell the fear.
Yeah.
And two, your friend is traumatized.
Yeah.
And I understood like trauma instinctively because I knew he was going through stuff. So I didn't hold it against him, even though like he, gouged me with a pen. And the teacher's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And I was just like,
were you bleeding?
Oh yeah, man.
Oh man.
It was like leaking. And I tried to brush it off, tried to be cool about it. Didn't even bandage it up until some girl was like, you can't walk into the class like this. But I started to like change my tune. And it was like when I started to like listen to what teachers were saying. And one of the things that really kind of triggered me when I was in high school, one teacher was like watching kids go dumb and go hyphy. And she's like, no, kids, go smart. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait, she's right. Because if you keep telling yourself you're going to go dumb and go stupid, you're going to trick your brain into just thinking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started like questioning like that stuff at like a super young age. Like I was like, wait a minute, why am I even listening to this music? And I started shifting my social groups. So I hung out with a lot more Asian kids, joined the Asian Youth Service Committee, like which is an after-school program for.
So you literally took that song serious, like that song was just a feel-good song about the culture and all that. But you're like, no, I want to go smart.
Well, that was the thing. I was like, it was like listening to Linkin Park. I was like, man, I love Linkin Park. But then I was at one point listening. I was like, man, I
don't want to.
I don't feel like I have these guys' problems. Like these are some serious problems that like as a high schooler, I was aware enough to know that I wasn't going through that.
So you were really taking music literal.
Yeah. I did art too. And even though I was like really analytical, like I drew and did like a lot of mural stuff. Like I was like on like giant poster boards and stuff. I got put into the art academy, which was usually the alternative academy for the hood kids that they didn't want to like kick out or that maybe were flunking the regular program. And then they put all the other kids in like environmental study academy where they do more sciencey stuff. And then they had like regular track for like the regular kids. So I got put into this VAMP program and I was just like, man, I feel like my education went from to really bad. Like the classes were so easy.
Yeah.
That I was just like, what is the point of this?
Was it like special ed for smart kids?
No, I think it was like a program to keep like the more creative, like hood kids like out of trouble.
Okay.
So they had them like do art and stuff, mural stuff. They had like spray painting. Like our art teacher had like a skateboard ramp that they built together with some of the students. So you could go in and skate until eventually the school, made them get rid of it. So it was Oakland High was very anarchic kind of like school system, like compared to like what I saw in England. The middle school I went to in Idaho had home ec and had like other classes that taught you how to like do more like outside of school stuff, like cooking and stuff. The education system in Idaho was like way better than it was in Oakland, in comparison. And people cared a lot. And so I basically ended up going into college. And because I kind of goofed off my first 3 years, I was like, let's go to community college. So I went to like Laney.
Okay.
I've never taken calculus. The highest math class I took was like AP stats. I was like me trying to rebuild myself. I failed trig like 3 times because I was just being belligerent in class and not wanting to listen. So I get into college. I'm like, you know what I want to do? I want to do biomedical engineering. And yeah, which is super, I wanted to do stuff for myself.
Yes.
And like finally I was doing that, but I was trying to drag my friends with me.
That was one of the probably biggest mistakes you did, right?
That was one of the biggest and most reoccurring mistakes I did until like I got like, I would say until recently.
Okay.
I would just keep dragging my friends with me. I would see like they had maybe confidence issues, or maybe they didn't, they didn't have the right network, or like they didn't know what was out there.
You had survivor's guilt.
Yeah, it's super survivor's guilt. And so when I got into college, I wanted to build stuff to like help my friends get more exposure. So I ended up taking the assessment, scored really high in English. And then like for math, they put me in trig. But the counselor, black woman, she was like, hey, you seem like a pretty smart kid. I'm going to put you in calculus. But I knew that I didn't understand pre-calculus.
So you're set up to fail.
Well, almost. So I ended up signing up for pre-calc. And then I like took it during the summer of like when I graduated high school by myself. I didn't have any friends in that class, right? All my other classes, I was doing really well. And teachers were kind of identifying that they were like, hey, like Sean and his friends, or like the ones I'm having like similar classes with, are like on 2 different frequencies, like when it comes to learning. Like I'm paying attention to what teachers are saying. First day, the teacher was like, hey guys, Ebonics is a dialect. There is no such thing as slang, like, or a proper way of speaking. Like that's not a real thing. And I listened to what he said and I was like, yo, he's right. Because based off of like who you're around, that's just the way you speak.
Yeah, you are a product of your environment.
Right. And I mean, if you go to the Philippines, there's probably in different towns and regions, people speak differently.
Oh yeah, the dialects are they're all different.
Right. But there's no, I mean, you couldn't say that, but it's not real. Like you go, it's a slang way of talking, or this is the wrong way to speak. But that's all like.
I think each culture has their words, or like the grammar, and you respond in the use of the context.
Yeah.
You could say the exact same thing, but have different meanings. Every language has that.
Like to me, I grew up half my life in Oakland. So like I'm from Oakland. Like I rep it. I was seeing how people were using certain words and ideas to make people less than. Those, like, when I was younger, I was kind of putting the pieces together, like, yo, wait, he's right. People are saying that this is ebonics and slang, but these people in Oakland, this is just how they speak.
Yeah.
This is their own dialect. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, I get it.